say the ice retreated, it didn't just retreat a little bit offshore where it was, but miles and miles away.
Yes, sea ice used to be very, very close, and I actually drank sea ice, multi-year sea ice. That was my source of fresh water for the first almost 3 decades of the study. Now the ice retreats on average around 400 miles offshore and as far as 600 miles. So the whole nearshore area just north of the island has changed drastically. And most important, or certainly as important as the ice retreating, is the fact that the ocean now is absorbing all that solar radiation, so that the sea surface temperature has gone from being very close to zero to being 3 to 4 to 5 degrees, and that has changed the whole fish composition of the area.
My goodness, so much that you've seen over these years. We'll get back to more of this. I want to go to Dr. Rosen. You're Deputy Director of the U.S. Arctic Research Commission. Is it your job to tell President Obama what's happening up there?
Well, maybe not my job, but we work together to come up with some recommendations for both Office of the President and for Congress on what research should be done and how funding should be spent on Arctic research, and climate change is a huge part of that.
And obviously you've got a lot of people working up there, but what do you think when you hear George's stories?
It's a great way to illustrate what's going on. I mean, the fact that he has this long-term research like that, because it's so hard to fund year after year research. We tend to fund research in 3 to 5 year chunks, and to have a 40-year data set is really rare and extremely valuable. So it tells an incredible story, and it illustrates in a really succinct way why that research is important, why that type of research is important, and those impacts.
And we talked to Michael Castellini of the University of Alaska Fairbanks earlier this week. He had an interesting analogy for some of the changes that animals are facing up in the Arctic today.
Animals have adapted in the past. They've adapted to past ice ages. The problem is this particular case, though, that rate of change is very, very slow compared to what's happening now. So it's as if the asteroid, hit again, but now instead of having thousands and thousands of years for animals to adapt, you're trying to push it into about 150. That's not within an evolutionary time scale. That's way too fast.
Dr. Rosen, could you comment on that idea?
Absolutely, and that's really the crux of it. This change, there have been changes in the past. The rate of change right now is extremely rapid, and the impacts on disease, phenology, and the other types of things like primary production and biodiversity in the Arctic, we're seeing some things directly. We suspect other things are going to be happening, so we're studying now, doing research to try to be able to track these changes that we think may happen if they haven't happened yet. But it's absolutely, phenology is the study of the relationship between climate and these periodic biological phenomena like migration or the time that plants flower. And as slow evolution happens, prey and hosts and predators and those types of things, they evolve together. So a good example is to look at something like caribou, and they have very specific times that they migrate, and its photo period or sunlight is something that cues that in. Or if you get warming, and the snow melts earlier, and the plants begin to bloom earlier, as they are right now, sometimes up to 2 weeks or more earlier than they have normally in the past. You may have caribou arriving with calves at times that you don't have that peak plant production, or the plants aren't at that peak nutrition, and that has been shown to cause a decrease in calf survivability. And that kind of thing, when you see things like massive decreases in body heat or a decline in calf production, those are the types of impacts that are going to have a ripple effect, a larger effect on a greater population.
Dr. Hogan, I'd like to get your thoughts on what we heard from Michael Castellini. This idea, this compressed time frame where we're expecting the animal life there to adapt so quickly to changes that are happening far too rapidly.
Yes, I think, and what Charles said is a really good point, that ecosystems kind of used to evolve together as things changed. And one of the things that's happening now is that the Arctic prey is being pulled away from my seabird colony, and the subarctic species haven't had time to move up there to take their place. And in the past, when you had these ecosystem shifts, you actually had a shift of the ecosystem, and here you have things that are impacting various species in different ways. And what
Research Commission in Anchorage. We're talking about some of the effects of climate change. And if you're seeing some of those effects yourself, what you have, give us a call at 844-724-8255. It's 844-SCI-TALK. Let's go to George, who's calling from Minnesota today. Hi, George. Go ahead. You're on Science Friday. Hello. Hi. What's in your mind, George?
Well, I want to second everything I've heard on the program so far today. In 1968, I began flying in the far north seaplanes, northern Canada and Alaska, for the next 38 summers, and I've seen all these changes that they are talking about. Let me give you some examples. When I first started in 68, the ice out dates along the ice Arctic Circle began about late July. Now it's 2 to 3 weeks earlier. And I flew a lot in the Hudson Bay area, and there the polar bears are coming off the ice like 10 to 15% lighter, and with the ice pack shrinking and leaving earlier, some of them are drowning because they're not able to swim that huge distance back to shore. And two more things. In 1940 to 42, a tiny ship called the St. Rock became the first ship to navigate the Northwest Passage, and it took it 27 months. That's the first ship ever. But in 2000, an updated version, the St. Rock 2, made that passage in less than 2 months, and that's with stops along the way. That's a huge example of what the difference is in the ice conditions in the Arctic.
My goodness. George, yeah, well, I'm just gonna let you go just because I want to get a quick comment from Charles. But thank you so much for sharing your story, because you just like our other guests have seen this firsthand. And Charles, obviously we've heard a lot of these stories. I want to get to one thing quickly about, we hear so much about melting sea ice in some of these stories, but another side of this is snow showers in the area turning to rain, and that also affects life in the Arctic. Something we don't hear as much about as retreating sea ice.
Right, exactly. That season, the transitional season in the springtime, especially when normally things like seals may be on the ice, but the crops themselves are, and what's called a nugo. It's kind of like fluffy fur. It's not a good waterproof fur. It's made for cold insulation to keep these guys warm in cold, dry conditions. And when they get rained on in this nugo, they get wet. And that is something that is not a good thing for a brand new pup. Similarly, there have been some studies that have been done looking at peregrine falcons that are cliff nesters. Typically, they're pretty much they're open cliff nesters where you'll have chicks that will be born, and normally there will be cold enough weather that during the time that they're really vulnerable, they'll be in their kind of downy feather condition, and they'll stay warm. Instead, we're having these earlier and earlier rains instead of snow and icing events that is having a pretty severe effect. They've done some studies looking at putting covers or nest blocks over some of these nests, and those chicks do much better when they don't get wet and get cold.
Our colleague George mentioned polar bears that he's seen over the years, and I know, Charles, you've done autopsies on polar bears. What have you seen?
It's a tough one to interpret. We know that with the ice free days, as the number of ice free days that George is talking about, as they increase, there have been studies that have shown that there is decreased female survival and breeding rates, and also there's decreased cub survival when body condition changes. And some of the necropsies that I've done on polar bears, including one on Cougar Island with George, have shown polar bears that have come in extremely poor body condition, very, very emaciated, and have not revealed other reasons for these deaths. So we don't have a specific direct connection, but it is highly suggestive that these animals are not able to get the food that they need to keep good body condition. Also, they may be expending more energy because they have to swim more to try to find their prey. It's hard to make direct connections, and a lot of the impacts that we see are regional in terms of climate change, but it's highly suggestive that these guys are suffering these effects.
I'm John David Kosky, and this is Science Friday from PRI, Public Radio International. We're talking about impacts of climate change in the Arctic. George Bokia, a very different about cod up in the Arctic. We hear sometimes about booming populations in Norway and Russia. Less optimistic things about cod in Alaska. What's the story of cod up there?
Well, Arctic cod are actually small forage fish. They're 6 to 8 inches long, and they're not harvested commercially in the Western Arctic at all, so that no one has really paid much time or attention to them. So we don't really even know what populations were like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but now that work is being done, it's clear that they are cold water fish. They don't like water that is more than 4 degrees Celsius, and they certainly like areas of ice cover. So they have shifted away from the areas that are opening up, and some of the work that I've been doing with my seabird species has clearly shown that the seabirds will do anything they can to find cod while we're feeding their young, and they in certain years can't find any cod at all. There is a possibility, and certainly this is one of the things that happens. It's true with the bowhead whales that are studied by Craig George up there. He has found that the ice melt has helped the bowheads a bit because there was a bit too much ice for the bowhead population, and now it's actually having an increase. And Guillemots also probably prospered from things warming up a bit in the 70s. But so the cod populations elsewhere may have been doing better at a certain point, but once you get this season effect rising as it is, they won't do better for long.
But Cheryl, another thing that we've seen is the possibility that orcas, killer whales, are moving farther north now, and those bowhead whales that are more common might be food for north traveling orcas?
Right. Stu Moore has written several papers and then some presentations that really break it down really well into, if you look at Arctic marine mammals in 3 groups, you have the ice obligate, or the animals like the polar bear, the walrus, the ring seal, and bearded seal that absolutely depend on ice. They are ice obligate animals. Then we've got the ice-associated marine mammals like the bowhead whales and the beluga. But then you've got these seasonal migrants, and those killer whales or orcas, along with things like gray whales and other types of whales that come up on a seasonal basis, are really able to potentially take advantage of the situation and not only provide almost a competition in certain cases for resources, but also a threat because, obviously orcas, they've come to the north before. They're not a new animal up there, but the question is, will we see them more and more? Because they may be able to take advantage of this decrease in sea ice to get up there either earlier or in greater numbers. And one of the things that we're very concerned about in bowhead whales is that we will have this vulnerability of calves. Bowhead whales calve in the lead system on their way to the eastern part of the eastern part of the Beaufort Sea from the Chukchi Sea. And if we start seeing more and more killer whales in that lead system or further to the north, there may be an impact on calf production. But what we're seeing right now with numbers, bowhead whale calf production is exploding. It's doing wonderful. And it's going to be interesting over time to track if we start to suspect that there may be some of this predation on these calves from killer whales.
We just have a moment, George. Any other species you consider a climate change winner here other than orchids?
Well, yes, actually, horned puffins, which are subarctic species, moved north, and they were always seen at some level close to Barrow, but they started moving in numbers and bred on Cooper Island for the first time in 1986. They go to the Arctic seabird that I'm studying, black guillemots, and kill the chicks and also push the eggs out. So it's that same sort of thing that Cheryl's talking about with orcas. There are species moving north now that the ice is melting, and they're impacting Arctic species.
Well, George Dubofsky and Cheryl Russell, stand by. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the evolving Arctic, and we're going to take some more of your phone calls as well. 844-724-8255. That's 844-SCI-TALK. We'll be right back after this short break. This is Science Friday from PR.
Support for Science Friday comes from TIAA Craft, a financial services company